right, so we're going to go through the next section where we really talk about the IEP document. We've gone through kind of that intro to AT. I think I briefly saw in there somebody asked about UDL. We do talk about the universal design for learning. We give strategies as we go on in here about talking about how can we help schools really use that universal aspect to really get materials and procurement of materials at a universal perspective. So we will get into that a little bit, but I love ideas. If people have other ideas of how to make it even stronger, definitely share with me. But as far as we go into that intro section, then that section is really looking at the assessment process. And then really going into the IEP documentation. So here we're going to talk about how to document assistive technology trials, devices, and services in the IEP. So we really talk in this part of the documentation, we give specific examples. Quiet has developed a lot of resources already that have a lot of specific examples of how to document in the IEP. So we try not to reinvent the wheel again and sharing different ways to document. Things that are already out there, we are sharing and giving clear examples of. So we also give examples of how to write it in the many different sections of the IEP. So for example, we do come up with even a list of ideas of how to share examples of assistive technology, both in high tech and light tech. You'll see that we talk a lot about light tech instead of low tech, and light tech meaning the ones that don't have that advanced circuitry, right? So something like a graphic organizer or visual schedule, a highlighter, a checklist. And then our high tech, right? Something that has like the dynamic displays or a voice output or text to speech, something that would be on a tablet or a computer. So we have the two different ways that people can use and make sure that they're including examples of assistive technology in that last section of the IEP and the supplementary aids and services. So I don't mean to rush through this section, but I do want people to know that we are writing up specific examples in the present levels of what people can use, some sample language, which I think is really helpful for people to say like, hey, I'm trialing something right now. I don't know what the best assistive technology is. And we have some documented examples of how can you do that and what are examples of language you can use to say that a student is trialing some devices, or a student is looking at this, or a student has using their personally owned device, and how do we make sure that that's documented clearly in there. And at the end, if people want to stay on and want me to dig in and show people some more of this information, I'm happy to. This is just really a snapshot today, it's not completed yet with the AT guidance, but really just giving you a sneak peek at what's happening so far. Okay, so we're also looking at the AT implementation. So really talking about who's going to be working with the student when he or she is using the AT, who's responsible for training, who's responsible for collecting that data, who's responsible for the ongoing modification, adjustments to the AT equipment, all these things that happen on a regular basis, but helping people think about when we're implementing AT, it's not just a one person that's implementing and helping support with that implementation. So again, we went through and we've gone through some examples from the Ohio Center for Autism and Low Incidence, has developed a lot of these questions already. So what are questions to think about with the training? Who's going to be training? Where will the training be provided? What are things that are happening with the environment? If there's certain times a day that the AT is going to be used, where is it going to be stored? Is it going to be locked up in the evenings? Are they keeping it in the classroom? How does it get transported from class to class? Is the student able to do it themselves, or do they need support? Again, that data collection questions. We're still, throughout the AT process, still wanting to collect data. Just because we collected data to prove that a student or somebody needed a device doesn't mean that there isn't some ongoing need for checking and double checking that this technology is still the most appropriate. Technology changes so fast that sometimes we do need to consider a different technology tool. Again, additional questions to consider. Does it go home with the student? Who maintains that equipment? Again, we talked about that modification or the adjustments. And who's responsible for helping integrate that in the regular curriculum? How do we help teachers and staff understand how to use that AT in the regular classroom as well? So you'll see there's also, again, some different links to resources here that were linked earlier. Again, the set worksheet is one of them. And then some other manuals as well and resources from WADI. All right, so how do you go about getting assistive technology devices? So these are a few of the resources that we have listed here. There's definitely more, but we have the Wisconsin AT resource map. I think this is one thing to really remember that you all have access to. It's developed under CISA too, but it really gives the different resources and the independent living centers that you can go and get information from, or resources or access, all by county. So you can pick a county here. Let's see, I'll do Dane, for example, and it's going to go through who my CISA is. It's going to give me some questions and some ideas of how I can get assistance there, contact information and names of people, as well as information from DVR, the DVR support there, the ILCs, the independent living centers, and also some more sample language. And then again, statewide resources, talking about different equipment and resources throughout the state as well. All right, so again, this Wisconsin AT for All, and this is just obviously a really great tool that we have for access to a lot of different technology by categories. This is where we are also talking about how can we add some more categories or help with the categorization of some of this, so people can understand a tool could maybe be found underneath a certain academic or functional area as well. But knowing that this is here as well, we're seeing a lot of those already. Again, there's the Medicaid support, some of these different funding sources as well. There's TEP funding as well. And I'm sure there's a few SLPs in this group that are even more familiar with other funding sources directly through vendors and insurance funding sources especially for AAC. But I tried to list in this site here, or in this presentation, some of the resources that are also helping kids get access to tools. So I know we have in the Madison area, we have a lot of students who can access Kiwanis for access to an iPad or a tool as well. And there are some donations and support that way. And then we also, in this area of the guidance document, looking at the how do we talk about getting materials and accessibility at the greater level in our school districts. So how do we procure materials that are readily available for students? So instead of doing the backwards work of trying to get something in a different format after we've already purchased it, how can school districts and different organizations really work on and promoting the accessibility from the start? And I see people are doing the WisTech's iPad loan program. Yes, thank you for reminding me. I do think we have that in there, but I am going to make a note of that to make sure it's highlighted. Thank you for those of you sharing that. And then also when I talk about this, the loan program, I know that we were just talking in Madison schools. We had a gentleman from the local library system here who got a grant to house AAC iPads at the Madison libraries. I think he has 3 to 4 of them, and he's looking at increasing the grant, but he connected with us to see what apps he could actually put on those iPads. And they are now iPad loaners that families can go with no questions asked, no link to the school, go and ask to see if they can loan out for their students' AAC needs. So the goal of the librarian at this library was like, I really want kids who have their devices broken or who need to try it over the summer or want to see what a device looks like. How can I get this in the hands of families and support them? Not even a speech and language background, just a librarian that has had some experience and exposure to families who've been stuck when they haven't had a voice for their students. And so really exciting that he wrote that grant, reached out to us, and we're really helping to promote that with our families too. If you need a loaner, you can go to your local library in Madison and actually get a loaner sent to one of the other libraries. They'll transfer them between libraries. So go to your local library, ask for that, and see if you can get that support. And really cool to see how it's reaching out beyond just our school networks, but how can we help and invest our communities too? And I see there are a lot of great developers that are trying to build AAC tools for portable gaming devices, like the Steam Deck, a great example of that multiple use. Yes, I mean, there are so many, Xbox has a lot of different resources and tools that are universal as well. So I love those different resource ideas. Please definitely share them on that Padlet so I don't lose them. And I can make sure I add them to the resources as well. And again, this last section is really just making sure we're connecting any of those resources that we may be missing that that are out there. So without having to reinvent this, some of these resources are on our DPI website already, but thinking about all those different tools so that we do link the UDL here, the mediation systems, the parent initiative websites. And then we also, this is another one that Cassie Frost did a lot of work on, but really looking at what's available when I go to college, helping with the self-advocacy and learning the difference between what it's like when you're in college, in high school, and how that transitions to college, and common accommodations, ones that aren't common too, right? And thinking about those different areas and how we can support them and students learning those as they transition. So you'll see this is a very, very rich resource that was created as well.